Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Firewalls Don't Stop Dragons. I'm your host, Kerry Parker. Today we have episode 441 for August 11th, 2025. And as I record this, I have not yet left for Las Vegas. I'll be leaving tomorrow morning. So I recorded this a little over a week ago. And I was thinking that I was going to try to do a whole episode recorded from Las Vegas, edit it, produce it, post it from Las Vegas. And then I remembered that Vegas is nuts. Hacker Summer Camp with BSides and DEF CON is just honestly kind of crazy. So to cover my bases, I'm going to do a short news show now before I leave, which is, only a week's worth of news since I last had a news show. But it turns out I've got plenty to talk about, so we're going to do a news show. And then while I'm there, I'm still planning to record some audio from DEF CON while I'm there. I may try to sneak it into this episode while I'm there and add it at the end. Otherwise, I will save that audio and play it at a later date when I have more time to go through it and edit it down a little bit better. So real quick, before we get into the new show, I would like to say, especially if you're new to this podcast, that I decided to go ahead and create a single blog article that kind of lists all the hackers and hacker adjacent people that I have interviewed over the years, over the last 8+ years, and put it all in a single blog article that's easy to reference. So if you have not heard any of these podcasts, definitely check those out. I have a shortened link for it as well. You can go to fdsd.me. That's short for Firewalls Don't Stop Dragons. fdsd.me/hackers. And of course, there's a link in the show notes. But if you go to that blog article, I've put together a nice, tidy list of a lot of my best hacker-oriented podcast interviews. If you don't know where to start, I would check out one of the two, probably from Jeff Moss, aka Dark Tangent, who is the person who started Black Hat and DEF CON. And then maybe check out the Cult of the Dead Cow interview with Death, Veggie, and Omega. Great interviews. They're all great interviews. But if you had to pick a couple, maybe start with those, and then I'm sure you'll be hooked and you'll listen to the rest. Okay, so we have a new show for you today, and a slightly abbreviated one. I got a little bit of an update on the T-app hack. There is now a class action lawsuit filed, which should surprise no one. ChatGPT users are shocked that their chats are now showing up in Google search results. I'll explain what happened there. The Trump administration is launching a new private health tracking system with big tech that is not a good news for privacy. Australia is rolling out age checks. They're next on the list. It seems to be spreading like wildfire around the planet. Grok, which is Tesla's AI, is now in Tesla cars, but maybe not in the way you think. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the China-backed hackers that were exploiting some Microsoft flaws. That was horrible, and we're going to be feeling the effects of that for some time. And then finally, Dropbox is dropping support for its Dropbox Passwords, and you don't actually have a whole lot of time to do something about that. And that will lead into my tip of the week. So let's get to the news. All right, last time on the news show, I talked to you about the T-app and how it was hacked. And if you don't remember that, this article will help refresh your memory. But there was yet another hack related to this. And now, of course, there are class action lawsuits, which frankly, there should be. This was pretty bad. So let me read briefly here from 404 Media. A user of women's dating safety app T, that's TEA, as in like spill the tea, has filed a class action lawsuit after the app repeatedly exposed users' sensitive data, including selfies, photographs of IDs, and more than 1 million direct messages sent by users. Both data breaches were first revealed by 404 Media. The plaintiff, California resident Griselda Reyes, seeks to hold the defendant responsible for the harms it caused and will continue to cause her and thousands of other similarly situated persons in the massive and preventable cyber attack, the lawsuit reads. T aims to provide a space where women can anonymously sign up and safely share information about men they are dating. T skyrocketed to the top of the U.S. Apple App Store last week, after which members of the notorious troll forum 4chan found an exposed T database which contained tens of thousands of images of T users and identity documents. T requires users to take a selfie when they make an account to ensure that only women can access the service. The lawsuit says that Reyes, quote, submitted an image containing her PII, or personally identifiable information, to T as part of the sign-up process. And then another quote here from Scott Cole, one of the lawyers, as part of this suit, says, quote, "A lot of women went on the app with the express or implied promise that their information would be kept secure, that the information would only be used to verify their identity. I think that for people who are already in the segment of the population that is worried about online dating, the people that went to this site thought that they were going to be treated with their information," and it says, and I think it means, "and would be treated with anonymity, and that trust was violated," unquote. Cole said he expects that more lawsuits against T will be filed across the country first, and that he hopes all of them will join the class action. Okay, so we saw this coming. This was a really horrible breach, especially in a very private scenario. And this company just did not do what they needed to do to keep this stuff secure. And, so that's what happens when you screw up like this, you get sued. So if you were affected by this breach, I would absolutely reach out to these folks. There are links in the article that you can find in the show notes that will have their contact information. But again, this is another situation where this ID was probably only used to verify that you were a woman and should have been deleted. They shouldn't have kept it after that fact, but apparently they did, and they did not secure that data, and somebody found it and stole it and then republished it. If you can't protect it, you should not collect it. All right, next up, this one's from Ars Technica, and it's about ChatGPT inexplicably allowing chat history to be Google searchable, meaning that it could show up potentially in search results. Now, you had to do something to make this happen, so don't freak out just yet, but the thing you had to do was a little bit too easy. So anyway, let me read this article. Faced with mounting backlash, OpenAI removed a controversial ChatGPT feature that caused some users to unintentionally allow their private and highly personal chats to appear in search results. Fast Company exposed the privacy issue on Wednesday, reporting that thousands of ChatGPT conversations were found in Google search results and likely only represented a sample of chats visible to quote-unquote millions. While the indexing did not include identifying information about the ChatGPT users, some of their chats did share personal details, like highly specific descriptions of interpersonal relationships with friends and family members, perhaps making it possible to identify them, Fast Company found. OpenAI's Chief Information Security Officer, Dane Stuckey, explained on X, or Twitter, that all users whose chats were exposed opted in to indexing their chats by clicking a box after choosing to share a chat. Fast Company noted that users often share chats on WhatsApp or selected the option to save a link to visit the chat later, but as Fast Company explained, users may have been misled into sharing chats due to how the text was formatted. And this is a quote from and you can't see this, there's a visual that shows what this dialogue looks like. And it basically says, when users clicked share, they were presented with an option to tick a box labeled "Make this chat discoverable." Beneath that, in smaller, lighter text, was a caveat explaining that the chat could then appear in search engine results. At first, OpenAI defended the labeling as sufficiently clear, Fast Company reported Thursday, but Stuckey confirmed that ultimately the AI company decided that the feature, quote, introduced too many opportunities for folks to accidentally share things they didn't intend to, unquote. According to Fast Company, that included chats about their drug use, sex lives, mental health, and traumatic experiences. Carissa Valise, an AI ethicist at the University of Oxford, told Fast Company that she was, quote-unquote, shocked that Google was logging these, quote, extremely sensitive conversations, unquote. Stuckey called the feature a short-lived experiment that AI launched to help people discover useful conversations. He confirmed that the decision to remove the feature also included an effort to remove indexed content from the relevant search engine through Friday morning. Google did not respond to Fast Company's reporting, which left it unclear what role it played in how chats were displayed in search results. But a spokesperson told Ars that OpenAI was fully responsible for the indexing, clarifying that, quote, neither Google nor any other search engine controls what pages are made public on the web. Publishers of these pages have full control over whether they are indexed by search engines, unquote. OpenAI is seemingly also solely responsible for removing the chats, perhaps most quickly by using a tool that Google provides to block pages from appearing in search results. But that tool does not stop pages from being indexed by other search engines, so it's possible chats will disappear sooner in Google results than other search engines. Valise told Fast Company that even a short-lived experiment like this is troubling, noting that, quote, tech companies use the general population as guinea pigs, unquote, attracting swarms of users with new AI products and waiting to see what consequences they may face for invasive design choices. Another quote from Veilid, quote, "They do something, they try it out on the population and see if somebody complains," unquote. To check if private chats are still being indexed, a Fast Company explanation suggests that users who still have access to their shared links can try putting the part of the link created when someone proactively clicks share on ChatGPT to uncover conversations that may still be discoverable on Google. Yeah, so I guess when you create a share link on a chat you've created, there's a checkbox, which I don't think is checked by default. But if you check this box that says make this discoverable, what you're really doing there is you're saying make this chat public, make it searchable by Google, which of course makes it public. And so somebody doing a search on a topic relevant to what you were discussing may bring up a copy of your ChatGPT session. So I will definitely be bringing this up with Carissa when I interview her later this month. We've got so much to talk about in relation to AI ethics. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that one. That's going to be a heck of an interview. All right, this next one is from AP News, Associated Press, and it's about a pretty troubling new program from the U.S. government. The Trump administration announced it is launching a new program that will allow Americans to share personal health data and medical records across health systems and apps run by private tech companies, promising that it will make it easier to access health records and monitor wellness. More than 60 companies, including major tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Apple, as well as healthcare giants like United Healthcare Group and CVS Health, have agreed to share patient data in the system. The initiative will focus on diabetes and weight management, conversational artificial intelligence that helps patients, and digital tools such as QR codes and apps that register patients for check-ins or track medications. The system, spearheaded by an administration that has already freely shared highly personal data about Americans in ways that have tested legal bounds, could put patients' desires for more convenience at their doctor's office on a collision course with their expectations that their medical information be kept private. And this is a quote from Lawrence Gostin, a Georgetown law professor who specializes in public health, and who says, quote, "There are enormous ethical and legal concerns. Patients across America should be very worried that their medical records are going to be used in ways that harm them and their families," unquote. Officials at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and this is going to come up again, this is CMS, who will be in charge of maintaining the system, have said patients will need to opt in for the sharing of their medical records and data, which will be kept secure. And I'm going to come back to that tidbit in a minute. Those officials said patients will benefit from a system that lets them quickly call up their own records without the hallmark difficulties, such as requiring the use of fax machines to share documents that have prevented them from doing so in the past. Popular weight loss and fitness subscription service Noom, that's Noom, which has signed on to the initiative, will be able to pull medical records after the system's expected launch early next year. That might include labs or medical tests that the app could use to develop an AI-driven analysis of what might help users lose weight, CEO Jeff Cook told the Associated Press. Apps and health systems will also have access to their competitors' information too. Noom would be able to access a person's data from Apple Health, for example. Patients who travel across the country for treatment at the Cleveland Clinic often have a hard time obtaining their medical records from various providers, said the hospital system's CEO, Tomislav, I'm going to butcher this, Mihaljevic? I'm just going to go with that. He said the new system would eliminate that barrier, which sometimes delays treatment or prevents doctors from making an accurate diagnosis because they do not have a full view of a patient's medical history. Digital privacy advocates are skeptical that patients will be able to count on their data being stored securely. The federal government, however, has done little to regulate health apps or telehealth programs, says Jeffrey Chester at the Center for Digital Democracy. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and those within his circle have pushed for more technology in healthcare, advocating for wearable devices that monitor wellness and telehealth. Kennedy also sought to collect more data from Americans' medical records, which he has previously said he wants to use to study autism and vaccine safety. Kennedy has filled the agency with staffers who have a history of working at or running health technology startups and businesses. CMS already has troves of information on more than 140 million Americans who enroll in Medicare and Medicaid. Earlier this month, the federal agency agreed to hand over its massive database, including home addresses, to deportation officials. The new initiative would deepen the pool of information on patients for the federal government and tech companies. Medical records typically contain far more sensitive information, such as doctors' notes about conversations with patients and substance abuse or mental health history. And this is another quote from Chester, who says, quote, "This scheme is an open door for the further use and monetization of sensitive and personal health information," unquote. The Trump administration tried to launch a less ambitious electronic record program in 2018 that did not get finalized before his first term, but it did not have buy-in from major tech companies at the time. Okay, so this is really bad. Look, yes, being able to share your medical information among your various doctors is an important thing, and we have that capability today. When you sign up for a new doctor, you invariably go through forms that say, "I'm going to let you talk to my other doctors and get that information so that they can have a copy, so that they can have a full picture of your health situation when they're making, suggestions to you." Now, that alone is fraught with problems because sometimes this is done through third parties. It's not clear what information is really protected there. Most people think that HIPAA is going to save the day here and all this information must be kept private. That is not true. This is dangerous stuff. And so now they want to bring in big tech as well. These big tech companies are just clamoring, just salivating to get this health information because the health industry is so lucrative. There's so much money to be made. And if you know someone's health situation, oh my gosh, you could push all sorts of things at them that cost a lot of money with huge margins. Why do you think Amazon has a pharmacy? So anyway, this is not good. And I really hope that we find some way to stop this, because if we really start opening up all this stuff and centralizing everybody's medical records and then giving big tech access to it, even if they think it's being quote unquote secure and quote unquote private, it will not be. I guarantee there will be problems. This is not going to end well. So real quick, I said I was going to come back to this notion of opting in and sharing your medical records. They make it sound like you have the choice in this matter. And honestly, you really don't. Think about it. When you're signing up for these services, when you're going into the office and they hand you an iPad and tell you to read this, check the boxes and sign at the bottom. A lot of times in what you're doing there is you're giving them option. You're doing this opting in. It's not an obvious, hey, we want to do something with your data that might, you might find problematic in terms of privacy. Are you sure you really want to do this? Check here if you want to allow us to do that. In most cases, I don't think you can check in if you don't check that box. So it's an opt-in, but it's not really optional. All right, next up, this is from ABC from Australia. And it's yet another case where age checks have been rolling out. And let me just read this. Australians will soon be subjected to mandatory age checks across the internet landscape in what has been described as a huge and unprecedented change. Search engines are next in line for the same controversial age assurance technology behind the teen social media ban, and other parts of the internet are likely to follow suit. At the end of June, Australia quietly introduced rules forcing companies such as Google and Microsoft to check the ages of logged-in users in an effort to limit children's access to harmful content, such as pornography. But experts have warned the move could compromise Australians' privacy online and may not do much to protect young people. And this is a quote from Lisa Given, who's a professor of information sciences at RMIT, who specializes in age insurance technology. And Lisa says, quote, "I have not seen anything like this anywhere else in the world. As people learn about the implications of this, we will likely see people stepping up and saying, wait a minute, why wasn't I told that this was going to happen?" Unquote. From December 27, Google, which dominates the Australian search market with a share of more than 90%, and its rival Microsoft will have to use some form of age assurance technology on users when they sign in, or face fines of almost $50 million per breach. The search results for logged-in users under the age of 18 will be filtered for pornography, high-impact violence, material promoting eating disorders, and a range of other content. Despite the apparent magnitude of the shift, it has mostly gone unnoticed, in stark contrast to the political and media fanfare surrounding the teen social media ban, which will block under 16s from major platforms using similar technology. As for why so few people have noticed, it may be because the changes took place away from the halls of Parliament in a relatively dry world of regulation. They were contained in a new industry code, one of 3 registered by E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman Grant in June. All up, the regulator will register 9 codes this year governing the conduct of internet service companies in Australia. The regulator's media release about the new codes made no mention of the new age assurance requirements, though Mrs. Inman Grant briefly mentioned the matter in her recent address to the National Press Club. And this is a quote from her. She says, quote, "It's critical to ensure the layered safety approach, including on the app stores and at the device level, the physical gateways to the internet where kids sign up and first declare their ages," unquote. Her comments hint at plans for age checks for even more sectors of the internet. Experts are concerned that almost no one seems to be aware of the shift. There are 7 main methods listed in the new regulations for verifying your age, including photo IDs, face scanning age estimation tools, credit card checks, digital ID, vouching by the parent of a young person, using AI to guess a user's age based on the data the company already has, and relying on a third party that has already checked the user's age. They are similar, if not identical, options to those being considered as part of the teen social media ban, and some of them have been tested as part of the recent age assurance technical trial with mixed results. Electronic Frontiers Australia, EFA, said given the potential privacy impact for millions of Australians, the new rules for search engines may not do enough to keep children safer online. And this is a quote from EFA Chair John Payne, quote, "One of the other concerns that we have is that there's no evidence as to the efficacy of the age assurance technical controls. Based on the separate age assurance technology trial, some of those results have been pretty disheartening," unquote. He also warned that the new rules for search engines could be circumvented using virtual private networks or VPNs. Another quote from Mr. Payne, quote, "If the ambition of the government is to prevent children from accessing pornography, they're forgetting straight away the skills of these young people," unquote. Beyond concerns about the accuracy of the age assurance technology and the VPN workaround, the new search engine rules will still allow users to access adult content simply by not logging in. And a final quote from Mr. Payne, quote, "This won't stop the teenager who wants to access pornography from accessing pornography. It won't stop the sharing of pornographic images. So really, it is more performative than it is effective," unquote. So this article actually goes on quite a bit longer. You could read it if you'd like, but it's, again, I've been talking about this a lot recently. This is really catching on and catching fire around the world. There's so many countries now that are trying to put in age verification technology to try to stop kids from accessing porn, but it doesn't work. There's just too many ways around this. And in the end, what it's going to do is require adults who can legally access this material to have to identify themselves by uploading, government IDs or taking videos of themselves. And it's just a recipe for disaster. And I'm not saying this is not a problem. I'm just saying this is not the solution. All right, next up, a really short article here from Mashable, and it's about Grok, which is Tesla's AI, being put into cars, but not exactly the way that some people might think it would be. So, from the article, real quick, last week, Elon Musk said xAI's Grok chatbot will be coming to Tesla vehicles. Now the company has made good on the CEO's promise, but perhaps not in the way many users had hoped. Launched on Saturday, the latest firmware update for Tesla cars brings Grok functionality to some vehicles, namely only those with an AMD chip inside. This means that only Teslas produced around mid-2021 or later can access Grok. There's a bigger caveat, though. According to Tesla's release notes for the software version 2025.26, quote, "Grok is currently in beta and does not issue commands to your car. Existing voice commands remain unchanged," unquote. This means that Tesla owners won't be able to use Grok smarts to get better functionality out of the car's voice command interface, which often leaves a lot to be desired. I've personally struggled to issue basic commands to a Tesla Model 3, including choosing a song to play or simply getting it to understand what I'm trying to say. Instead, Grok can now be used for non-car specific queries, including, and this is Tesla's example, asking the assistant what it would do on a first date with Tesla's robot Optimus. There's no word on whether Grok's behavior in Tesla cars may change in the future. Okay. I don't even know what to say to this. Yeah, I don't think I want a third-party, profit-driven AI system that is probably saving everything I tell it into the cloud built into my vehicle. And we discussed this at a recent news show. Giving AI agency, allowing it to do things for you automatically, is going to have a lot of downsides and something we really, really need to be careful with. And I don't think we really want, honestly, any AI chatbot that you can talk to in your vehicle running stuff in the background and perhaps misunderstanding something you wanted it to do, or extrapolating based on something you said that you might want it to do, and then doing things on your behalf without you really knowing or asking directly for. This is again not going to end well. I will have to talk about this as well when we interview Carissa Veliz here shortly. All right, next up, this is from the Washington Post, and this is a little bit more technical maybe, and something that you may or may not have heard about, but it's really, I mean, this is going to have lasting impacts, and it's not good. And it's about yet another Microsoft flaw, a really horrible Microsoft flaw that has been actively attacked, probably still being actively attacked by Chinese hackers, but honestly, probably everybody on the planet who wants to do corporate espionage. So anyway, let me read this article from the Washington Post. Hackers connected to the Chinese government were behind at least some of the widespread attacks in the past few days on organizations that use collaboration software from Microsoft, defenders working on the intrusions said in interviews. The breaches in the United States and other countries took advantage of a disastrous security flaw that drew attention this month after Microsoft issued a patch that fixed only part of the problem in SharePoint, which is widely used to coordinate work on documents and projects. And this is a quote from Mandiant's Chief Technology Officer, Charles Carmichael. And Charles says, quote, "We assess that at least one of the actors responsible for this early exploitation is a China Nexus threat actor," unquote. Microsoft said Tuesday it had seen 3 separate Chinese groups participating in the attacks, including 2 it knew to be backed by the government. The FBI, the White House, and the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency declined to comment Monday. The attacks allowed hackers to extract cryptographic keys from servers run by Microsoft clients. Those keys, in turn, would let them install anything, including backdoors that they could use to return. Federal and state agencies were affected, researchers previously told the Washington Post, but it remains unclear which of them were vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Only versions of SharePoint that are hosted by the customer, not those in the cloud, are vulnerable. Microsoft issued effective patches for the last of the exposed versions by Monday. SharePoint is often integrated with Microsoft offerings including Office, Teams, OneDrive, and Outlook programs, which could therefore be hit as well, according to security company Palo Alto Networks. While installing the patches should prevent new intrusions, customers also need to change the machine's digital keys, apply anti-malware software, and hunt for any breaches that have already occurred, Microsoft said. Some of the early targets of the attack were entities that would interest the Chinese government, 2 of the responders said, but a wide range of attackers were now trying similar grabs, others said, looking to steal corporate secrets or install ransomware that encrypts key files until payments are made. And one last quote here from Carmichael. Quote, "It's critical to understand that multiple actors are now actively exploiting this vulnerability. We fully anticipate that this trend will continue as various other threat actors driven by diverse motivations will leverage this exploit as well," unquote. So, I mean, you as regular listeners who are not running corporations or are not part of IT departments, may not have heard about this or may not understand this, but this is big. This is nasty. And yet another horrific vulnerability by Microsoft, and there will be no liability for this, probably. This is going to have serious impacts going forward. Many of these companies, especially the ones that are hosting their own services, can be really slow to install patches. Some may never install patches. That is, I guess, one of the benefits for using a cloud-hosted or a Microsoft-hosted version of your service and letting them manage it, because at least they can keep up to date with these patches and keep these things fixed. But a lot of companies want to control their own destiny and want to be able to change these things so that it doesn't disrupt their own internal processes. And so they host them themselves. Or maybe they just want the data on their own site because they need to for legal reasons. They need to keep that intellectual property on site. And so they're going to have to quickly patch this stuff and then go back and try to figure out if anybody has already hacked into their systems and clean that up. That is not going to be easy. This is really bad, and we're going to be feeling the impacts of this for some time to come, I think. Okay, last news story here, and this is from the Register, and this will lead into my tip of the week. And this is about Dropbox, the popular file syncing system, who added a password manager option. And now they have decided, we're not going to do that anymore. So anyway, this is from the Register. Dropbox has given users of its password manager until the end of October to extract their data before pulling the plug on the service. The discontinuation of Dropbox Passwords will happen in phases. In less than a month, on August 28th, Dropbox Passwords will become a view-only in both the mobile app and the browser extension, and the autofill functionality will be deactivated. On September 11th, the mobile app will stop working completely, although data will remain accessible through the browser extension. Finally, on October 28th, Dropbox Passwords will be entirely discontinued. Users will lose access to all their data, and all saved usernames, passwords, and payment information will be, quote, permanently and securely deleted, unquote. Dropbox has recommended 1Password as a replacement. That's the number 1 password. It's a popular password manager. While the service is an adequate password manager, it is prone to the occasional glitch, and that's a link. I'm not familiar with that. But anyway, if you're curious, you can find the article in the show notes and click on that link. Users will need to pay a subscription once 1Password's free trial ends. Yeah, 1Password costs money. As for why Dropbox decided to drop the service, the company said it was, quote, part of our efforts to focus on enhancing other features in our core product, unquote. The service was launched in 2020 for paid Dropbox plans and extended to all users in 2021. As with many other similar services, it provided users with a secure place to store their usernames and passwords, auto-filled fields on websites and apps, and notified users if their private information has been compromised in a breach, which was part of the problem. There is plenty of competition in the password manager world. LastPass and 1Pass are prime examples, and Apple, Microsoft, and Google have all thrown their hat into this ring. Dropbox, a veteran of the storage synchronization world, followed but is now bowing out to focus on its core products. Dropbox has been having a rough time of it lately. The company has subjected staff to several rounds of layoffs. In October of 2024, CEO Drew Houston stated, quote, we're making more significant cuts in areas where we're over-invested or underperforming, unquote. Yeah, so this is going to lead straight into my tip of the week. And this is something I've covered before, and so I'm kind of recycling this, but it's a good time to bring it up again. And that is to back up your cloud data. We've talked about backing up your regular data, the data that's on your computer or on your smartphone. And that is still true. But in today's world, a lot of what we're doing actually is in the cloud first. Like the primary storage for your service is the cloud. And password managers are often one of those things. And so remember, as we like to say, the cloud, that term, that marketing jargon, is really just shorthand for someone else's computer. When you are doing stuff, quote unquote, in the cloud, you're using a computer that is out on the internet somewhere and getting the results back on your local computer, which means in a lot of cases that the data you're operating on, like for instance, think Google Docs or Google Calendar or some of these other services, all that data actually exists in the cloud. You are just looking at it. When you run the web app or when you open the app on your phone, that data actually exists and is stored and is kept in the cloud. And if that is the primary location of that data, you might be tempted to think that it's okay, like some big company is taking care of my data and it's going to do a better job than I am. But that is not always true. And these, think about companies that go out of business. If you remember Picasa or Wunderlist or Pebble or Insteon, and Google and Microsoft have entire web pages devoted to all the products that they have killed off over the years. Or, could just be a service outage, or it could be synchronization errors. Since all your computers are synchronized, if something goofs up and deletes all your data on one computer, it may dutifully synchronize that deletion everywhere. So you need to be thinking about what data you actually have that is only currently stored in the cloud, and you want to make a backup of that data. So I've got a whole article on this. There's a link in the show notes. I recommend you read it. But basically what I want you to think about things like email, calendars, your online office stuff, if you use Google Docs for a lot of things, or Microsoft 365 for a lot of things. Maybe you have images stored in the cloud. If you've got other cloud drives, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, Apple iCloud, Dropbox, Sync.com. There's so many of them out there now. But if you've got stuff stored in those cloud drives, you really want to think about making a static copy of that data that is separate from what's there, just in case something were to go wrong. To-do list, contacts, passwords, as we just found out, two-factor authentication seed codes. I've got a whole article dedicated to that one alone. And even things like, saves of your games and fitness and health tracker info. If there is a way for you to go to those services and say, give me an export of my data, send me a backup of my data, give me a copy of everything you have on me, you should do that. And in fact, you should do it periodically. Because at least if it's information that you would have a really hard time if it suddenly went away. So be thinking about those things. The article goes into much more detail and has a lot of links that'll take you to sites that you might be wanting to do this on and give you a way to back up your data from those sites in a way that for some reason, if those sites were to blow up or go away, that you would at least have a copy of that data. So look in the show notes for my tip of the week, or you can go to firewallsdon'tstopdragons.com and search on cloud backup, and you'll find the article, and make it a periodic thing. I would, depending on how important that data is and how often it changes, you might do it once a month, you might do it once a quarter, maybe even just once a year, but think about it and actually make a conscious decision for how often you want to make backups of that data. All right, so there you have it, your abbreviated news and your tip of the week.
All right, well, Hacker Summer Camp is officially over, at least for me. DEF CON is still going on a little bit today, which is Sunday. I'm recording this the day before the podcast comes out. And you can probably tell my voice is a little bit hoarse. There's a lot of yelling involved because it's so loud here in so many places. And you'll get a little taste of that here in a minute with some of these interview snippets that I've got for you. But I did manage to get that done. So I'm going to put a little bit extra on this podcast, as I was hoping I could, from Hacker Summer Camp. So that's, again, 3 hacker conferences back to back. BSides Las Vegas is first. It's Monday through Wednesday, part day Wednesday. Black Hat, which I never go to, which is Wednesday and Thursday. It's very corporate, very expensive. And then DEF CON, which starts on Thursday, but really gets rolling on Friday, Saturday, and a little bit of Sunday today. But I'm just going to go to one more talk today, and then I am officially done. And man, I love Hacker Summer Camp. It is so much fun in so many ways, but it is a strain on the body. Let me just put it that way. So let me just give you a little taste of what happened this week. So BSides was what started the whole thing. It was great. I spent a lot of time at at Josh Corman's I Am the Cavalry track, which is focused on now our critical infrastructure and how vulnerable it is, particularly water systems and hospitals, because hospitals depend on water as well as electricity, but a lot more on water than you might think. But of course, it's not just about the vulnerabilities. It's also about hope. Josh's Undisruptible 27 project is going strong, and he talked about that a lot while we were here. There's also DEF CON's Franklin project with Jake Braun, and we'll be talking with him shortly. And there are others too, working hard to try to shore up our defenses and make sure that we can take a punch, as Josh likes to say. So that was BSides. BSides now is the one that has what they call Sky Talks. And Sky Talks, as a member of the press, actually anybody, when you go in there, they're super uptight. They are super careful not to let anybody record those particular talks. Almost all the other talks are recorded, mostly with video that will come out usually for free later, sometimes several weeks later. It takes them a while to get it all together. But Sky Talks in particular are meant to be private in the sense that the person giving the talk, while the subject matter is not secret, the actual audio of that person saying those things is not allowed to be recorded. They make you put all your devices away. They make you turn your phone off. You even have to take off your smartwatches. I had to put my Apple smartwatch away because that could be used to record something. And if they see you take out anything that looks like a recording device, they will kick you out. So I went to 2 talks, and these are the first Sky Talks I've ever been to. When I started going to DEF CON back in 2021, they had not reinstituted the Sky Talks yet. And they moved from DEF CON to BSides. And you have to kind of do some finagling to get what they call a token, which is your pass, your ticket to get in to see some of the talks. And I need to give a quick shout out to Mandy and Gray Fox for making that happen for me this year, because I missed those drops. And they were still able to score one for me, which allowed me to see 2 Sky Talks. I saw one by the Gibson, who is a hacker that we'll be talking about more here in a minute. And he had a really, really sobering talk about a very serious threat to U.S. nuclear infrastructure that he, working at his capacity at his day job, his team was able to basically find that before it got to be a problem, thankfully. And then another talk about protecting your devices and your data when you're going through customs at the U.S. border, both of which were really interesting, and I was glad I was able to go. So after BSides, there's a little bit of an eye of the storm thing going on, because, again, I don't go to Black Hat. So as BSides winds down and DEF CON ramps up, there's a little bit of a breather space in there where I can kind of stop, take some notes, and relax, honestly, a little bit, because it's tough. These, not only are there all talks all day long and all sorts of things to be doing during the day, at night there's a lot of parties. And for me, these parties, while being fun parties, and most of them have open bars, it's also a fantastic place to hang out with friends and do a lot of networking, which I try to make the most of every year. And this year was no exception. So the BSides pool party was Wednesday. That was wonderful. But I tried to also have some downtime, get reorganized, and then I had to get ready for my book signing, which turned out to be a logistical, well, not really a nightmare, but very difficult. It's a lot easier to do a book signing when your publisher is at the same conference that you are and can just take care of everything for you. And you just show up as the talent, sit down, sign some books, and walk away. I had to order all my books, pay for those books myself at my author discount, which is not nearly as deep as you would hope it would be, ship them all to my hotel, figure out a way to get them from my hotel to the conference, and then not just to the conference, but from a storage place at the conference to the book signing table. And mind you, these books are heavy. My book is 600 pages long, and each book itself is heavy, and I had 40 of them. But long story short, that all went very well. I managed to sell all 40 copies of my book. And I also got some great exposure, I think. A lot of people came by the booth and asked me what this was about and flipped through the book. And honestly, it was so heavy. A lot of people were like, I'd love to buy this, but I can't carry this around, or I can't fit it in my luggage. So I did lose some sales to that, which is something I didn't really think about, but I should have. Anyway, bottom line is it was a success. I didn't have to ship any books back. They're all sold. They're all gone. It was a wonderful experience, even though it was logistically difficult. And I've got some profuse thank yous that I will throw out after we get through these snippets. Okay, so let me introduce these snippets. We'll go through them one at a time. I tried to corner some people just to get a quick interview, a little mini interview, basically what they're doing here at DEF CON. And again, these things are so chaotic, it's really hard to corner anybody for any period of time if you don't schedule ahead of time. And even when you do, I had a couple of these I wasn't able to get just because things happen, things come up either on my end or on their end, and we have to reschedule, and then sometimes it just doesn't happen. But I managed to get you 3 clips from DEF CON. One was from Stacey Higginbotham. I actually had a wonderful lunch with her, and I should have captured this snippet while we were there at lunch, and I forgot. So she was very kind enough to record this little snippet for me from her studio at home and send it to me, which I will share with you now. And if you recall, we interviewed Stacey last fall. She's from Consumer Reports. She is an IoT expert, and we talked about the problem of IoT devices being end-of-lifed, EOL'd, and companies no longer supporting them, which means there are no software updates, and they are not, therefore, getting patches for security bugs that may linger forever. So let's hear a little bit from Stacey.
Hey, Carrie. This is Stacey Higginbotham, and I am a policy fellow at Consumer Reports working on cybersecurity. And I came to BSides Las Vegas this year to give a presentation on the security risks of zombie devices in consumers' homes, and to talk about our model legislation, which we are hoping to get states to adopt in the coming year. This legislation would require companies to tell consumers at the point of purchase how long they plan to support connected devices for. And when companies decide to stop supporting these connected devices, they have to proactively send an email or otherwise let consumers know that they plan to stop. They also need to keep those expiration dates, if they were, on their website, on the product page for the website, to make it easy for consumers to look up and see how long their smart display or their connected fridge actually will be receiving security updates. This is a big deal because if a company stops sending security updates out to these connected devices and a vulnerability is found, then hackers can actually use these devices to infiltrate a home network, or more likely, use the compute capacity and the bandwidth from the device in the home to become part of a botnet attack that attacks other things, other places, other websites, etc. So we're hoping to stop this, and as an added benefit, it will also make it a little bit nicer for consumers when they're buying these devices to understand exactly what they are buying, which is not the physical device itself, but basically a promise of software support and updates over the life of however long the company wants to support it. I was excited to come and talk about that this year because that's mostly what I've been working on. The other things that I'm working on at Consumer Reports is we are helping create the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark. We've been working on helping establish the framework for the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, one of which is actually telling consumers how long manufacturers plan to support these devices. And we're also looking at doing some research around secure routers. Basically, we would love the world to know that Consumer Reports cares about cybersecurity, both helping consumers secure their digital lives and also advocating for legislative policies that will make security better overall for everyone. Because as anyone who is here knows, all you need is 1 or 2 weak links in cybersecurity and everybody goes down.
Consumer Reports is doing great work in this area. I also spoke with Yael Grauer several times here. We bumped into each other quite a bit. She's great. We've interviewed her recently too. I need to get both Stacey and Yael back again for sure. But Consumer Reports and Stacey are doing some wonderful work around IoT. And as consumers, we really need what they are trying to get accomplished. All right, so my next interview is somebody who I met several years ago at the voting machine village at DEF CON. I had interviewed Hari Hursty already, who is the main guy at that village at DEF CON, talking about the security or lack thereof of our voting machines here in the United States. And I met Jake way back then, and I honestly at that time had no idea who he was. I think I gave him my card and just never followed up. But since then, I've learned who Jake Braun is, and he has done a lot of things. He worked at the White House in the area of cybersecurity, among other things. But crucially, and to the point for this little mini snippet, he has partnered with Jeff Moss and DEF CON to launch what they're calling the Franklin Project, as in Ben Franklin. And the reason it's called that, I believe, is they put out a DEF CON Franklin Almanac each year, trying to capture the most important news and information that comes out of DEF CON for the people who need it outside of DEF CON. And the Franklin Project is also gathering volunteers to try to help communities improve the security of our critical infrastructure. But why don't I let Jake tell you himself?
Hi, I'm Jake Braun, and I'm here at DEF CON representing Project Franklin. It's a project that myself and Jeff Moss started about a year ago, right when I was leaving the White House. Jeff asked me about standing up this project, and we were talking about what we should do to kind of get the community more involved, the DEF CON community more involved in kind of giving back to their community. And so I mentioned to him that when I was at the White House, we had a tough time dealing with the attacks on water utilities from the Chinese. And actually, my first public event I did was in Pittsburgh just weeks after the Iranians hacked the water utility outside Pittsburgh. And I said, this community of water utilities around the country, of which there's 50,000, really has almost no cyber support at all. And so, but for civil society giving back, this civil society, DEF CON, and volunteering to help, they would have no cybersecurity at all. And that's like 99% of them would have no cybersecurity. And so we stood up Project Franklin, and we just finished some successful round of pilots with a handful of utilities that have gone really well. And now with the threat from China and Iran increasing because of increased tensions, and federal support to critical infrastructure decreasing with cuts in budgets to places like CIS and EPA, we're really trying to scale up the effort now going into year 2 by trying to identify free cyber tools that some of the cyber companies around town provide so we can scale up our support more quickly. And so, for example, Dragos is one that has some free tools that we're looking at, and they're helping us assess which ones would be most useful for water.
So that was just a teaser, because I will be doing a full interview with Jake Braun coming up soon, and it will air at this point probably in a couple months. I've got so many interviews backed up at this point, but it will be coming. So I can't wait to talk to Jake about that at length. All right, next up, my final little mini interview is a twofer. I got Quintin from the EFF and the Gibson from hackers.town, who were collaborating on the EFF's Ray Hunter project. Hackers.town had their own area at DEF CON, and so they hosted Cooper and his colleague, who goes by the handle, the hacker handle, Oops Bagel, to talk about the technical stuff behind this Ray Hunter project and also help people set up their own Ray Hunters. Now, these are what they call IMSI catchers. That's IMSI. And IMSI stands for International Mobile Subscriber Identity. This is all cellular radio IDs, basically. And so an IMSI catcher is a fake cell site, a cell site simulator, also sometimes called a stingray, which is why their thing is called Ray Hunter. And the government, law enforcement, intelligence agencies, sometimes foreign intelligence agencies, will bring these devices, sometimes as small as a suitcase, into an area where they want to try to see who is there by tracking cell phones in the area and trying to get cell phones to connect to this fake cell tower to gather information. And so what these guys are doing is taking a little $20 cellular hotspot device, and they figured out how to flash their own software onto it, which I was actually able to help some people do that. They were selling these devices at this area. It's not really a booth. It's bigger than a booth. A little community area within DEF CON. They sold these devices. They were $20 a pop, and they were helping people flash this Ray Hunter software on there. So that's the setup. Let me let Cooper and Gibson tell you more.
Okay, stingrays are bad because they're devices that can capture your cellular data and use them as a surveillance apparatus. It's not great for privacy in any fashion, and so at the end of the day, I just wanted to help how I could on this project because we can democratize threat research this way and maybe change the world.
So what we've done at EFF is build this project called Ray Hunter, which is a $20 tool that'll help you detect stingrays. So it's a Linux daemon that runs on an off-the-shelf mobile hotspot, and it's open source. What it does is it looks at the traffic going between your mobile hotspot and the tower it's connected to. And we have written some threat signatures, basically, to look for anything that is indicative of an IMSI catcher. If that happens, we give the user a little notification. You can then download a PCAP file, analyze it yourself, send it to us for analysis, and get an idea if an IMSI catcher is in your area. Our goals for this: we want to get a much better understanding of how often IMSI catchers are being used in the US and every other country in the world. Specifically, we want to know if those IMSI catchers are being used to spy on constitutionally protected or human rights protected activities, right? Things like activism, freedom of worship, freedom of press, right? We want to know if these are being used to spy on that. If they're not, great. We only have to worry about the many other sources of surveillance out there: license plate readers, facial recognition, biometrics, all that stuff, right? But if they are, then we need to update our threat models and also worry about this. So this is a forensic tool. It's a detection tool. It's a research tool, right? And it's a way to better understand what's going on in this world.
Stingray bad. No, seriously, like, what got me interested in what you guys are doing and why I wanted to help pitch in here is literally this is the next generation of detection capabilities. Like we're talking about arming people with these tiny devices that allows them to see into signal they don't normally see and understand what they're looking at, and help enable research globally for that. Like, it's a wonderful project, a wonderful idea. Coming from my background, it's undeniable. So I had to jump in and help.
So if you want to learn more or get involved, go to EFF.org/RayHunter.
So again, I have an interview scheduled with them to talk about this at length. We'll go into a lot more about how, as Gibson says, stingrays are bad. I will be interviewing both of them soon, and that will be coming to a future podcast somewhere later this fall. Okay, so again, I tried to get some other snippets, didn't quite work. In particular, I was trying to get one from Naomi Brockwell. We crossed paths many, many times, but we were never in a really good spot to get a little mini snippet. I did manage to attend a fabulous talk that she gave at the Crypto and Privacy Village. She's a very passionate and effective speaker on the subject of privacy. I'm really glad I was able to make one of her 2 talks, and I would love to get her back on the podcast at some point. So again, the book signing was a success. I had 40 books. I sold about 25 on the first day, and I was actually able to book a second slot, and then I sold the rest. I did give a few away as well, but the main thing for me is I did not have to ship any books back. And I also met a lot of people, and I think I got some really great exposure. I was in a very prime location, so I definitely consider it a success. Will I do it again? Man, I don't know. The logistics were really tough. So if I could find some better way to do it, maybe I will do it again. But I am glad I at least got this one done, and it was a success and worth doing. So just to wrap up, I just want to say a few more things. And first of all, again, this week was utterly chaotic, but mostly in fun and productive ways. I did a lot of socializing. I did a lot of networking. This is going to be the genesis of several interviews, which is pretty typical for my trips here. But not only did I meet some new people and set up some possible podcasts for the future, I've, firmed up a lot of really key relationships, which are often key to finding more people to interview. So again, a lot of networking involved, and it was great. A lot of this networking happens at parties. I went to a DEF CON speakers party where I hung out with Yael Grauer and Josh Corman, and Bruce and Heidi Potter were there. Michael Lee was there. I also met Ian Thompson. If you might know him from Twit, he's also a tech reporter at The Register. Because of my initial connection with Death Veggie at the Cult of the Dead Cow, I've now made some other great connections, and I hope some good friends at the Cult of the Dead Cow and the Loft and some of these other OG hacker groups. I spent some time with Weld Pond, who we interviewed last year, and hung out with, Dildog and Medusa and several others. They're a lot of fun to hang out with, and I'm just so happy that I was able to make those connections. It was a lot of fun. So I need to say a couple quick thank yous. First of all, to Gray Fox and his friend, who I will not name, but she knows who she is. They were very, very helpful, as always. Gibson and Becca at hackers.town, Kiwi, Bay16, Mandy, Adam, and many other goons and many other people who helped me with that book signing logistics. It really did take a village to make that happen. And every one of them was there for me at a very crucial point to make that happen. So thank you to all of you. And that's going to have to do it. I got to get this all edited and ready for tomorrow. So take care, stay safe, everybody. And until next week, as always, don't get caught with your drawbridge down.